Okay, we are live from Irvine, California.
Welcome, everyone. This session will be sharing out some of the experience of virtually connecting, an entirely volunteer operation of colleagues who are interested in exploring collegiality in the 21st century in a connected learning environment. Who's here today?
Hit the slides, there you go.
There's a screen up here where you guys can see who's joining us and who's here literally face-to-face. And I think we'll just start by talking a little bit about collegiality. I wanted to sort of open up with the question of what it means to be a colleague and how we learn professionally. Ultimately, virtually connecting is a community in extending what's possible in terms of professional learning, especially in a conference environment. I think some of the takeaways that, so basically we are at conferences, we share out, we try to capture some of those hallway conversations that occur and bring it out to others who are interested in what's happening beyond the walls of the conference, the physical place. I think one thing that's important about VC, that's our acronym for virtually connecting, one thing that's important is that it builds on the notion of intimacy in learning. We get to know each other better. I think also I would throw out the idea right away of unflattening a digital identity. Usually you kind of perceive who someone is through the content they share out online. But when you actually have conversations with people and get a feeling for the way they think and have a dialogue with them, you start to understand who they are in a richer way, in a way that's inspiring. So that, I think, is an important value in the community of virtual connecting. I also would throw out the word trust, because I think that's important. And finally, the last idea I want to throw out, just as a kind of prompt in the beginning of the conversation, is the notion of surprise. Not everything that happens when you're having a conversation with someone who has shared purpose with you or you have shared interests, not everything goes as expected. And one of the wonderful aspects of the virtual connecting community for me has been the numerous positive surprises that have occurred. So I'm going to throw it to one of my colleagues now.
It's me.
Okay.
I'm Levine, and if you can't tell, this is a little bit seat of the pants. We are not an organization professional. Are we professional, guys? We're just a group of people who kind of formed around this idea of extending the conference experience to those who can't come for many reasons. And you're going to hear some more stories about that. One of the things that happens, I remember, like, when I started going to conferences, I feel old now, but I would like study the program and I would plan it all around the agenda and the keynotes and the sessions I wanted to go to. And over time, like, the most valuable part of the conferences is everything that happens in between. And I really live for those moments. And that's why when Mia said hallway conversation, that's really what I think about. This is not necessarily, we're doing this, we do it through Google Hangouts. Normally it's conversational. So we just did one at 1:30. We couldn't find a room, so we were just sitting in a conference room. Christian was there. And more or less, we have people at the conference and people who are our virtual buddies, and we have a Google Hangout together. And we just informally talk. Sometimes it's only 10 minutes because that's the time allowed. But the most important thing is it's not planned. So, you know, some people, when I've invited them, I think Christian asked me, like, what's the topic? What's the agenda? And it's like, well, you know, we just, what's your name, sir?
Doug.
Doug. We just met at this conference. Do we have an agenda when we have this conversation, Doug?
No, we don't.
No, we're going to talk about, what do you do, Doug?
I work for the County Office of Education in San Diego.
Let's talk about San Diego and my favorite fish taco restaurant. I mean, we don't have an agenda for our conversations. And so this idea that it's two-way also means that some people will come on and maybe they just want to listen. And it's okay if people don't want to talk. It's not okay if people talk too much, but we just don't really control it. And that's all part about, obviously, we want to embrace difference. That almost sounds like a slogan, but I mean, I think we really do. And I have to say for me that, like, you know, through this, I mean, me and I are just hatching a project, and we wouldn't have had this opportunity if it wasn't for this kind of informal hallway type conversation. And you know, you're going to hear from our virtual folks eventually. Are you still out there, guys?
We're still here.
Yep,
Okay.
sure.
I feel bad because I'm not seeing you. Like this. It's just that these are my most important colleagues now that I work with. Next, so I'm going to switch to her camera. You start talking, Autumn, and I'll get the thing switched.
All right, cool. Hey, everybody. My name is Autumn Keynes, and I am a co-director of Virtually Connecting. And I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the key features that we have found that have worked so far. So there is a fair amount of planning that goes in on the back end. We embrace that spontaneity, but just because you know, you're trying to meet up at a specific time between people who are not at a conference and people who are at a conference. So you have to agree on a time. And, you know, you have to, yeah, there's a little bit of pre-planning that has to go on. So one of the things that has really worked is this relationship between the on-site and the virtual buddy. There's some communication that goes on there. We have a Slack channel, emails are exchanged. There's usually a Google document that's opened up. And you know, there's this relationship that is built between the on-site person and the virtual person, and then that ends up kind of proliferating out on either end as well. So the virtual buddy will connect with other virtual people who want to be there virtually and start building relationships there. And the on-site person will start connecting with some of the on-site guests and building relationships there. But that key relationship, that thing that kind of connects them, is the relationship between the on-site buddy and the virtual buddy. So that's something that has worked, is having that relationship being the basis for things. We found that Google Hangout has worked as a technology for us, specifically Google Hangout on Air, which is now YouTube Live. One of the things that has made it really accessible is the fact that it's browser-based, but also the fact that it streams live over the internet and it's recording. So immediately when we say that we're not going to be live anymore, when we hit that stop broadcast button, it's immediately available as a recording on the internet, on YouTube. And the other thing that I'm going to say really works for us is the small group. So Google Hangout has a limit of about 10 people, that can be in a virtual room at a time. And so that's something that has just really worked for us. And I think I'm taking the next slide too. So can I get you to do the flip? All right. Awesome. Some of the things that have not worked, or I even struggle to say that they haven't worked, but things that we have struggled with, things that we're still trying to figure out what makes them work. How about that? Large group. So we've tried to do some large group kind of stuff. One of the key things that makes that difficult is the audio for it. We've made it work in the past with a lavalier microphone. And Maha was, we had a great situation once with a large group where Maha was the conference organizer as well as the on-site buddy. And so, but a lot of times when we've tried to make that large group work in the past, it's been a struggle because of different reasons. A lot of that being bad audio. And then lack of connection. I was going to make a joke that bandwidth is really important. So yes, that can definitely be a problem. But again, going back to that idea of the relationship between the on-site buddy and the virtual buddy, or the virtual buddy and the on-site guest, if you don't have that connection, if people aren't excited about the meeting, then we found that can be, you know, kind of, that can cause some troubles. And I think I'm going to pass it on to Andrea now.
Oh, wait, I'm going to jump in because Autumn's going to be really modest, but she has done this fantastic job to come up with like an organizing system for this. I mean, because we're kind of an ad hoc thing, and so we have like a process, and Slack. I mean, Slack is like, everybody's into it these days. I'm in about 5 Slacks, and all of them are dead Slacks. Like, people come in and they make their gifts and they get all chatty, and then they just kind of go away. And the Virtual Connecting Slack is the most lively and productive one that I'm part of. So I want to interject that.
Hi, everybody. I'm Andrea Rehn. I am a professor of English at Whittier College, which is just across town. like many hours of driving and traffic to get there. And I am also a director of digital liberal arts there. I got involved in Virtually Connecting. Actually, I think I might have been in the first official Virtually Connecting hangout. I didn't know it at the time. It was between Rebecca and Autumn, and Rebecca and Maha, and they're going to speak in just a moment, so I won't tell their story. But what I wanted to talk about is I've been on both sides of Virtually Connecting, all sides. I love it. I love the idea that what we're trying to do in Virtually Connecting is allow people who can't make it to the conference to participate in the conference, not just to watch the streaming of the keynote, which is awesome, but also to have those informal connections that Autumn was talking about, the hallway conversations, the oh my gosh, that's Jonathan Worth moment, wow, I'm talking to him. Sorry, I'm totally embarrassing him. Right. And I love that. I've been on both sides. I've been the conference buddy. Last year I attended a lot of conferences, and I walked around with my laptop, and where I was connecting people to people who couldn't attend. Often those people who couldn't attend were in different continents and not just different time zones, but 13 hours apart, waking up in the middle of the night to do that. It was amazing, right? Really, people really interested and wanting to have conversations. But what I'll also say is, and I've also been on the other side where I'm the person who can't make the conference, and I want to be there. I'm following along on Twitter, and I want to chat with you guys, but I can't make it. And what I'll say is, I love Virtually Connecting, but I also wonder a little bit if we might be adding into what I think is an academic disease that I suffer from, which is fear of missing out. Like by making it possible to participate in more and more and more conversations, which is a good thing. Are we also raising the specter of never allowing ourselves to be not in the conversation, never allowing ourselves to be turned off? And I know this is a thing that many of us talk about, and it's not specifically a danger of Virtually Connecting, but I do think it is a thing that Virtually Connecting can raise for us, especially those of us who are academics, right? I was teaching this morning, rushing across town to be here. I'm thrilled to be here. But I missed a Virtually Connecting session this morning that I totally wanted to be in, and I was feeling guilty as I was missing it, because I was thinking, I want to be in that conversation. And so, I'm not sure if that's my own personal anxiety or if that's a problem with Virtually Connecting, right? But it's a disease, right? But I do want to think about, in the ways that we're making conversations more accessible to more and more people, are we at the same time creating expectations that are impossible for us to meet? And that is related then to this question that I really think is one that I would love to get us talking about after the end of the presentations, is how do we, Virtually Connecting arose from a desire to make conferences more accessible to everybody. How do we continue to do that while also not causing ourselves to be guilt-ridden all the time? That's my concern. So, and I will turn it over next to Maha.
Hi, I'm Mahab Ali from Cairo, Egypt, and Alan has not turned the slide yet, or there's a
I'm working on it. There's a little bit of there's a little bit of action that has to happen.
Okay, so I'm just going to talk about what work can Virtually Connecting do to better close the gap between center and periphery, because we realize that even though we try to be inclusive, we try to be inclusive. So you have to turn the slide on time, right? Try to be inclusive as much as possible. It's actually really elusive because, how do people know that they can join, whether online or on site? Like people on site, we try to invite people on site, but we don't want to overburden them if they're too busy. But you want to be inviting, and at the same time, allow people space to say no. And at the same time, online, you want to ask people to come and join you. But again, if they don't want to be live streamed and recorded, then they should have the right to do that. And then there's also, what if people are just too shy to say they want to join? And so when someone favorites a tweet or retweets us without saying they want to join a session, we ask them if they wanted to join a session. We try to look in conferences for people that we haven't seen before. So, instead of focusing on just the keynote speakers and just the famous people, which we try to focus on those because virtual people usually do want to meet them, but we try to also focus on other people who are slightly less famous, but who have really engaging conversations. And so we think in some ways, by doing this, we're reframing privilege and hospitality. And so sort of, in some ways, the person on site is doing hospitality, but also the virtual buddy is doing hospitality, because that's where all the invitation comes from. Is like, hi, I want to meet you, come and join me here, you know, rather than it being the conference organizers doing that for you, and rather than it being just the very famous people doing that. I think we've got our own set of social capital in a different way, like parallel to social capital that happens in the real world. And that we're always trying to improve, right? We're iterating. It's not, we're not just stopping in one place. It's become sort of we've become very, very aware of, for example, oh my God, we have 7 men in one session. Where are the women in this conference, right? We don't want to do that. And now all of us do that. Of us who notices these things, all of us start to notice these things. And we're getting better at it, but every time you get better, you start to notice something else, and we keep trying to change that. And we're also trying to expand to different countries so that it's not just conferences in the US and Nadine and I here at past midnight. So moving on to Rebecca.
But I'm going to say, Maha, you're kind of famous.
Yeah, Moaha's definitely famous. So I'm Rebecca Hogue. I'm also a co-director of Virtually Connecting, and I am located in Sunnyvale, California, so just north of San Jose. I'm wishing I was there. Anyways, I want to talk to you just briefly about how I took what I learned from Virtually Connecting and brought it into my teaching. So I teach online, and one of the things that I've found with Virtually Connecting is, first of all, it's expanded my network immensely. So I've met so many different people, and people that have experience teaching in different contexts. And what this has meant is that I've been able to reach to my network and bring it in, but I've started to do things like for synchronous sessions in my classrooms, I modeled it after Virtually Connecting. Alan gave me a great idea about having an office hour, and then I'm like, oh, I don't want to have an office hour and just talk to myself for an hour. So I started inviting people that I know, my friends, into the online classroom. And so I now have 2 guests come in once a week, and we have a conversation. It isn't a presentation. The guests don't have to prepare anything. They just come in and we have a conversation about the topic. And my students are so enriched by it. And my students are experiencing a growth in their networks, because they will reach out to the people that I brought in as well. And so it's been a win-win on both sides, and quite a great experience. I'm going to end there with that, and I'm going to pass over to Nadine, mindful of the time.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nadine. Very happy to be here. I've been involved with Virtually Connecting for about a year now. It all started when I began working as the online content developer at the Center for Learning and Teaching with Maha at AUC. And she introduced me to not only Virtually Connecting, but to the Twitterverse of fellow passionate educators out there. So far, I've participated virtually in a lot of sessions. I was virtual buddy and on-site buddy a few times. So the first thing I want to talk about is how much all of this connecting with educators from all over the world has expanded my mind, my awareness, and my career goals, and even my networking goals and opportunities, right? So when I was first introduced to this, I was completely amazed at what was out there. And obviously the more I learned, the more I realized how much I didn't know. And the more people I was introduced to, the more I realized how many more are out there. And the more people I started having conversations with, the greater knowledge it enriched me with. And so the other thing I want to talk about is how much it has expanded my knowledge in terms of my master's, because right after I started doing this, I started my master's in educational leadership. And that's another area of my life that this has helped me. And because of Virtually Connecting, I was able to get to meet a lot of these people who are sharing resources and talking a lot about different topics. And not only just the different topics, but I saw the different angles and the different points of views to different topics, which was pretty interesting. And I was meeting people that I was reading articles for and blog posts for, so that was pretty exciting for me, and it was an honor to be part of that. And the community itself, like the people in the Virtually Connecting community and the educators community on Twitter, they're very helpful, right? Everybody is just looking out for everyone else. There aren't any hidden agendas. Everybody's just sharing resources, trying to get everybody to succeed at what they're doing. And that was, I think, just beautiful. And I think that's the paradigm shift in how the educators are connecting around the world, how they're creating, how they're openly sharing things. And that's something that we all can learn from, right? And when I started, okay, so I was afraid because I was a newbie. I still am a newbie in a lot of different things, but these people were just shattering all sorts of borders between newbies and experts, and that just made me feel very welcome. And when I was encouraged to start doing all these buddying online and on site, I was welcomed, and people like Mahan, Autumn, and Alan were encouraging me. They were mentoring me, and these people took the time to do that, and it was very important for me because these people have busy lives, right? So I was pretty honored that they were taking the time to do that. So they mentored me about a lot of the technological preparations that go into this, like how to start a session, how to go live, how to broadcast it. But not only that, they were telling me how to manage the actual session, how to make people feel welcome, how to get them to feel comfortable to speak, how to introduce people, and just generally make it an educational and informal environment, both at the same time. So I feel like being part of this community has advanced my knowledge in a lot of areas, and it's contributed to my professional development in specific and general ways. It's made me a connected learner, an open, communicative, aspiring educator, because I'm not really teaching yet, but hopefully on the way there. And I think it's one of the greatest benefits of Virtually Connecting, and that's what I hope by being part of this, I can get more and more people to develop and grow the same way I have. So thank you.
We love you, Nadine.
Love you too.
I'm switching your slide, Maha.
I actually forgot about this slide. It's a very important slide.
This is your idea.
Yes, it was. Let me give people a second to absorb this. In case someone is actually listening and not able to read, like they have something else on, it says, "But a wall does not appear to those who do not come up against it." And it's by Sarah Ahmed. And I think there's a lot of people who have criticized Virtually Connecting for all sorts of reasons. And I think sometimes if someone has not been in that situation where they can't be, where they want to be somewhere and they can't be, or they feel like their voice isn't at the table, where they're not included, they might not realize how important something like Virtually Connecting is to someone like me, or someone like Nadine, or someone like a lot of us, like even someone like Alan Levine, who's pretty well known, but still not able to attend every single conference he might be interested in going to, and not part of every single conversation he wants to be in. And at the same time, all of us who are privileged enough to be able to be part of this community will sometimes forget how difficult it is for people who don't have the bandwidth at all to join in, or people who are really, really shy about being in Hangouts and things like that. Or maybe even someone who would love to be here, but we are not even aware that they exist. And the thing is, you can welcome someone, but if you don't even, you can try to be welcoming, but if you don't really know, you can't see the barriers that they have that are stopping them from being there. And it's just trying to be cognizant that we don't know, that there might be walls that we don't see because they're not ours. Thank you.
Fantastic. This was actually rather quick, and this was not a Virtually Connecting session. So to let you know what's going on, we're actually going to run one at 4 o'clock somewhere out here or down the hall with Jonathan Worth and Kim Jackson. So what to do in the conference is run what we call a fishbowl session. So run a Virtually Connecting session as if they were, they're nothing magical. You're like looking at this and probably saying, it's a big deal, it's just a Google Hangout. And that's the beauty. This is one of these, it's a simple technology that's available to all of us. And not about the technology as much, about how we can use it. So Mia, do you want to, or let's have some questions.
Yeah, anybody have any questions in the last few minutes here?
George.
I've got a comment from my own sense. I'm George Station at Cal State Monterey Bay, and I participate sometimes in virtually connected sessions. But one thing that I think might have been submitted in some different way is each interaction actually enhances our network and our sense of connectedness. And so even if you show up and sit there and don't say anything for 20 minutes, you're going to come back the next time, and then you may talk for 5 or 10 minutes, right? But still, there's that sense of connectedness with the people who are in the hangout over time. And I think it's not like a one-time deal where you're in a webinar or something like that. It's nothing like that. It's very social learning experience.
And I also want to say, like, George and I have been crossing paths on Twitter and social media for a while now, and this is the first time we met. And it's not like, I mean, those first conferences I went to as a new person in this field, I was really nervous. I mean, how do you meet people? You glance at their name tag, sort of thing in the old days. But now I know George. I mean, we like the same stupid shows from the 70s. And then we sit down and we have a good time. And we were, you know, a friend of mine says, it's like friends that you've never met. And that's what enables through virtual connecting.
Charisse.
Hi.
Hi.
So I'm Charisse McBride at UC Berkeley. And I must say that participating in these kinds of experiences with social media and the hangouts and things like that, it's something that you have to do in order to, like, believe it, I guess. Like, seeing is believing or doing is believing. I teach in teacher ed, and a lot of the teachers the pre-service teachers are sort of hesitant to want to be on Twitter, or why do we have to do this? I don't know. I don't really get why we're connecting with folks from other places. But like you were just saying, when I go to conferences and folks are like, Charisse, is that you? You know, because I've seen you on Twitter and things like that. It really helps you to not feel, especially for me, someone who's really been an introvert, it makes it a lot easier to just automatically have folks that I'm able to, like, I have history, basically. I have this sort of history of practice through the different exchanges. And I think that goes a really long way, especially in teaching, where you can, you know, feel like you're not alone in the profession.
Yeah.
Just to build on that, I love that. I teach at a small private liberal arts college. So that's a wonderful place to teach. But one thing that we do have more people around there, because we're a small private liberal arts college. So virtually connecting with my students, it not only flattens out hierarchies, that my students could have conversations with you guys, right? That would not be necessarily in their realm of possibility otherwise, right? But they also can have that possibility of having a network, a really powerful network when they're still in college. And, you know, undergraduates are using social media in a lot of ways, but I'm not sure if they're always, in fact, I think very often my students are not using it to their advantage as a professional, right? So creating those network connections that we are all talking about and how amazing they are for us. Also, what virtually connecting lets me do is transfer that as well to my students.
It's incredibly humanizing. And, you know, Ma has to deal with, like, the whole time zone difference from Egypt, but often the best times for her to participate are when she's taking care of her daughter. And so a lot of times her daughter is like our friends. Like, hi, Oda. It's too late for her. But, like, you know, I have friends with a woman I've never met, her daughter in Egypt. And like, to me, that's like magic.
It is.
That's like the future that they promised me as a kid, almost.
I think the spirit of virtual connecting is that notion of connecting. And when we do any kind of work that breaks down those barriers so that we can explore the ideas that we share and you know, discover together, that's really powerful. And this is a small example of how the tools we have at our service are being put to use to find new forms of community and also new ways to think together. I think that's what it's really about.
We're almost, I think we're kind of out of time here.
Any last thoughts from you guys?
Just as always, thank you for bringing us. Thank you for bringing us into the conference. It's great. I mean, it's so exciting. I just sent out this tweet of a little selfie of myself presenting with you guys. It's such a treat to be able to present at this conference, you know? I've always wanted to go to DML. Maybe I'll make it in the future, but it's really, really wonderful to be able to present with all of you. And yeah, and check out our website. And if you have a conference that you're going to and you want to do something like this, let us know.
Yeah, everyone's always invited, and as conferences come around on the schedule, it's announced on Twitter, it's announced online, and the invitation is always open to be a part of these hangouts. So we'll end with an open invitation.
Yeah, we operate like a cult, just so you know.
It's not a cult. It's not a cult.
It is a cult.
It's not.
It's a cult because you don't know
Community.
it's a cult.
No, it's not a cult because a cult has to have a charismatic leader, and we have so many charismatic leaders. There's no way.
All right. So we're gonna stop the broadcast. We've made everybody chuckle, and then we're gonna try to run another one in about 10 minutes.
Awesome.
Okay, see you
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.